So, Nouf, everybody looking at this amazing backdrop will think we're on holiday, some fantastic destination, and it certainly is wonderful here in Abu Dhabi. But we're on the serious business of me finding out about what is going on in your life, what
Mm.
is going on in the lives of women in Abu Dhabi, and so really the changes that have been underway. So I think my first question to you, and thank you so much for agreeing to come and answer all my nosy questions. My first question is, um, how is your life different to your mother's life? Certainly, my mother, who obviously is I'm much older than you, um, she wasn't really able to work after she got married. My father wouldn't let her drive either. You know, her priority had to be bringing up the children, whereas I've been able to have children and work at the same time. So that's been just in one generation and a very, very big change. Um, what has been the situation in the lives of women here in this country? Has there been change? And if so, how is your life different, or is it the same as your mother's?
Well, first of all, welcome to Abu Dhabi. I hope you're having an amazing time here and the weather is just perfect. And I'm so happy to be here with you. And when we're talking about generational differences, will always be generational differences in every culture and every country. And I guess I'm so lucky to be raised by a single mother who was born in the late 70s. And she got her degree in economics and she was top of her class in one of the strongest universities in the UAE. And she worked in one of the biggest firms as well. And her life, even though she's well educated, she worked in one of the biggest firms, her life is completely different than my life. And her life is also completely different than her mother's. My grandmother cannot read, cannot write, and you see this jump. It's a crazy jump from someone who cannot read and write, and then her daughter, highly educated in university in the workforce, and then me, the granddaughter, who is enjoying all these privileges of being educated outside of my country, for example, being the global citizen I am, speaking in different languages, learning Japanese, for example. Why my mom did not have these opportunities. And I think women in general have their own difficulties, whether it was the UK, the UAE, Japan, women will always have difficulties. And the difficulties we have here are certainly different than anywhere else. I mean, my country 50 years ago did not exist, or around more than 50 years ago did not exist. And a lot of people used to live in poverty before 50 years. And we see that mega economical shift happening in the UAE and how it affects women personally. And I guess I'm just so lucky living in a country where the government believes in women empowerment, believes that you should have a voice. You are here, you're with us, you're gonna make a difference. And I think not many governments in the world have that kind of mentality of, no, you're gonna be here. A third of our cabinet in the UAE, they're women, you know? So growing up, seeing women representation that my mom did not see at her age, nor my grandmother, of course, really makes you different in a way that you believe that you can do more, you can contribute more. And there's a huge shift in women across the world and in this region in the level of awareness and the level of education. And women are finally financially free, which is a very big jump for women across the world to be financially free. And that really changes everything. It changes the whole game. So I don't know if that really answered your question, but to answer it perfectly, it's completely different. And one day when I'm gonna settle down and have my own kids, my girls are gonna have a completely different life than mine.
Well, I think, you've described so interestingly um, a huge change just within two generations. So, I mean, it must have changed everything in relation to the world of work and the economy, but also life at home. So, when you're thinking about a decision like you went to study in the UK, Did you have to get a male member of the family to give you permission to do that, or could you decide that yourself?
Each family is different, and there's something important that in our culture that you have to respect your parents. There is hierarchy. You have to respect the hierarchy and you have to respect your parents, no matter how old you are. Like I have an uncle who, when he was 27 years old, he have two kids, but he took permission from his parents to travel abroad. It's not that you're subjugated or that you're oppressed. It's just you respect your family a lot that you cannot do something without their approval, no matter how old are you. It's just something cultural. And I think a lot of times misunderstanding happens that people think that I don't want to use the word oppressed, but it's like, oh, you have to take permission. Everyone has to take permission here. Family is so important, no matter how old are you. And I'm so lucky that it was my mom actually who pushed me, to like, okay, how about you go and study in the UK? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, no, no, go study in the UK. And then I started applying. And then when I got accepted, I was like, maybe I should not study in the UK. And she said, no, you got accepted, you're gonna go to the UK. So I'm so lucky to have such an amazing, supportive mother. And it varies from family to family, but there's one thing certain is that everyone respects and values their parents' opinion.
So this is a very big change as we've been discussing.
Mm,
And I just wanted to ask two things. One about, you mentioned about the sense of the leadership from the center, from the top, that
mm,
the message going out that as a woman you should be able to take those advantages, reinforced by what your mother was saying. And I'd
mm.
be interested to hear how that's worked out and how important that's been. But also, if it's been a very big change for women, it must have been a very big change for men too, because the sort of wife they would have in the past would be very different from what a wife's role is now. And how have men coped with that? Have they felt undermined by it, diminished? Are they longing for the good old days? And has there been that sort of problem where obviously women have taken to this change with enthusiasm? Have men been a drag anchor holding it back, or have they gone along with it reluctantly, or have they embraced it?
Well, Baroness, that's such a big
Don't worry, no men are listening, so you can speak freely.
but the cameras are listening. And it's such a big, big, big question for real. And I think, this is a topic that we talk about actually a lot. And people usually, especially people outside of this culture, like to see this culture from a linear perspective. You know, they don't like to see the spectrum that there are certain conservative people and there's a certain liberal people. It's a spectrum. Wherever you
Mm.
go, it's a spectrum. But the easiest way is to throw a judgment that when you don't understand a culture in depth. And yes, everything you mentioned exists. There's the conservatives who prefer the old traditional roles, and there are the men who are supportive and accepting. I mean, my stepdad is one of them. He's amazing. He's very supportive to all of us, and he's very open and he's very encouraging. And that's something amazing, to see men like that. So he's not the only one. Other men like him exist as well. And there are men in the middle, it's a spectrum, honestly. And we attract people who are similar like us, so if I would find a partner, someone who shares my values, my beliefs, would be someone I want to be with, and he would want to be with me. If someone is unsupportive and believes in 100% traditional roles, the woman should not be educated and etc., there are few. I don't think there are a lot, but I'm not going to be the suitable mate for that person. So, in short, there's a spectrum, and men fall in every part of that spectrum.
And so, how important has it been, not just that you've had family support from your mother and your stepmother to lead this modern, sort of liberated life? How important has it been that there's been a sense that this is the direction of the whole country
Yeah.
towards a modern state that
Yeah.
women play their part. Has that been important in reinforcing that?
Oh my God, big time. I mean, from a governmental perspective, policy perspective, and nationwide perspective, there's a huge woman empowerment. Really big. I mean, when I was studying in the UK, I remember when I first moved to the UK, I had my parents with me, help me sort things out and find an apartment. And my dad ran into a friend of his while I was walking down with the street, and he was with his daughter. She studies medicine in the UK. She wants to be a doctor. And the both dads were like saying, "Oh, my daughter is here to study. I'm just helping her to set up things." And I was looking at her, his daughter, and I was smiling and I was happy that, oh, wow, like we made it. Our dads are supporting our dreams, our ambition, and our government is there to support us financially, policy wise, from every perspective. As I just told you, a third of our cabinet is women. And to see women in leadership roles is just more than inspiring, honestly.
So you've lived in the UK.
Mm.
What do you feel that people's perception is of women's role? What do you think? What do you think is the perception of UK people about women's role here in the UAE? How
Uh,
do you think they think your life is?
that's also an interesting question that goes back also to the spectrum. Because when I was at LSC, people are much more open and people know Dubai as this big, amazing city. And but there were a few times where
You're based in Dubai or Abu Dhabi?
Abu Dhabi,
Oh, right, yeah.
but Dubai changed the
Yeah.
perception to a lot of people. So is the UAE as a whole.
Mm.
But there would be also not small portion of people who would assume that I'm oppressed, and that and they would be shocked when they see me that I speak and I have an opinion and I'm strong and all of that, and they'd be like, "Oh, we did not expect that." And I'd be like, "What are you expecting?" And then I remember someone said living in tents, and I was like, "Living in tents? Do you see this?" And I remember weird conversations about that I should take my scarf off, and I was like, "I'm sorry, don't tell me what to do. We're in 2026. You still tell women what to wear and what
Mm.
not to wear? Come on." And but again, not everyone in the UK is like that. Everything is within a spectrum. But the complete shock was how strong I am in expressing myself and expressing my identity. And I remember some people would be like, "Does your husband beat you?" And it's like, I don't even have a husband. So it was, these perceptions shocked me because I thought that the world is much more open.
Yes, I think there's been a bit of a lack of understanding. We've been on our own journey
Mm.
from, as I say, the life that my mother's generation led to the possibilities that that I've had, and obviously even different for my daughter's generation. But somehow, because I think the pace of change here has been so rapid,
Yeah.
I mean, it took us a really long, slow process of progress because there's been such rapid change here. Um, I think, and because there's such deep preconceptions
True.
about life here, it's taken a long time for some people to wake up to it. And this is part of the reason for my visit here, to find out for myself in order to explain to women in the UK what the lives of our sisters out here in the UAE is actually like. So are there are there any things which, you've talked about all the things that you can do now, and which you have respect for your family in terms of their advice to you, but that you don't have a male guardian saying you can't go out, and sort of making the decision like that, and you can choose where to study or where to work. Are there things that you see further down the line in terms of future change, for the next generation? What is the next frontier?
Yeah.
I think I know what the next frontier is in the UK,
Mm.
which is about men playing a more equal part in bringing up their children and looking after older relatives. So equalisation at home, I think, is the next stage that we haven't yet
Yeah.
reached in the UK. In order for women to be truly equal, that they need to have men sharing, not just helping, but
Yeah.
sharing family responsibility. So that's what I think the frontier is for us. But what is the frontier for you?
Um, I I think, before answering that specific question, there's something important to clarify is that I touched upon it briefly by saying having a linear judgment on a culture that's not yours. And this culture, it's a collective culture, it's not an individualistic culture. You don't live alone. You live with your family, you're not even your immediate family, your grandparents, your cousins. That's very common. And in a collective culture, the harmony of the group is preferred over the individual preferences. And I think when you're looking at the UAE or the Gulf, that should be taken into account big time. And that's why when things like, oh, I'm going to ask my mom if it's translated, if someone heard me out of context, they'll be like, oh, you're 20 something and you still ask your mom. It's not that I'm 20 something and I still ask my mom. It's because how our families play a very big role in our lives. And I think that's something when trying to be open, you should look at cultures from a very non-Eurocentric perspective. And I think that's very important. And a lot of the judgments came on me is because they came from a very Eurocentric perspective. And I think that's very important to keep an open mind on how different cultures function. And when I'm viewed as oppressed, or oh, she's from the Middle East or something, it's so reductive because you don't really have a full understanding of how this culture functions. So when people say something like my mom or my dad, oh yeah, she's oppressed. No, it's not that way. It's just we value our parents a lot. So that's something very important that I had to clarify in when approaching the UAE or uh, Gulf countries or the MENA region in general. And when we're talking about the future, I believe that still we're Emiratis, we're Arabs, and people here still value family. So there will not be something like disobeying your family because family is a very big pillar in the UAE, and respecting the hierarchy and respecting your parents is part of the identity of an Emirati or an Arab in general. So that's gonna stay. It's not gonna be untouched. But I believe that women in the future and younger women right now are so lucky to have so much accessibility to the world and to connect with women from all over the world and to have that open mindset. And I think the relationships and the dynamics will be different in the future because of that openness, because of that instant. Let's talk, for example, ChatGPT. Like you have this one question, you ask it, it's right there. So I think AI and information technology and all of that is going to change the next generation. Hoping, maybe I'm being delusional, I don't know, but hoping that it will bring more unity and more understanding, especially to women across the world, and removing the negative stigma and the negative stereotypes, especially to this region, because you're more accessible. And I think they're going to be far more educated than us. If I had the liberty to study anywhere in the world, I wonder what my daughter will come up with. And if my mom was supportive, of course I'm going to be 10 times more supportive than my mother. So it's only good things from now on. And I have few questions I'm interested to know also. What perceptions did you have about women here in this region?
Well, I think that like most women of my generation, I'd understood about a very patriarchal society with limited choices for women, and really the situation that my mother grew up in,
Mm.
where women's role was very much confined to the home and not allowed to participate in any meaningful way in life outside the home. And we have been on this big journey of change But I think that we didn't necessarily, and I certainly didn't see that women in the Gulf and women in the Arab world were also on that same journey, and making progress. And I think it's partly because you've done it in a very different way from us, because we challenged religion, we challenged the state, we challenged the structure of the family, and had an argument against that in order to find our way to progress of economic opportunity and political participation and challenging violence against women. Whereas I can see from my visit here and the discussions I've had with so many women that your progress has been almost like incorporating the notions of family and religion, and tradition to be part of that
Yeah.
process. We used to have when we used to go on demonstrations, we used to have a chant, not the church, not the state, women must decide their fate. So that was it. We were against the church and the state in order to have our own advance, whereas that's not how you've gone about it. So I
Yeah.
think it's partly our misconception is because your journey has been so different from ours, but it's ending up with the same objectives, isn't it? Which is economic opportunity,
Yeah.
which is important in our economy and obviously important in yours, political participation as well, which you have, women participating in political life, but also tackling violence against women and girls, which is a big priority of our Foreign Secretary and certainly not a problem we've solved in our country, but that we want to work together with, women and men from all around the world to tackle violence against women.
Well, I really loved your answer because it really shows how different cultures approach things differently. And if we allow every culture to grow the way they're intended and they're supposed to grow aligned with their own cultural values, that's the greatest results that we are going to have. And to not have this linear projection in different cultures. And I'm so happy we had this conversation, and I hope you enjoy Abu Dhabi.